Hello folks, Why Guy here again. Welcome to my home on this very beautiful summer day. The name of this video is called The Why Guy Owns a Bible with Hell in It. Oh no! You know, people all the time are using this as a reason for the belief in hell. They're saying my Bible has hell in it. So that's what makes it a real place. Because my Bible says so. And it's a real place to be feared and avoided. You know, they use a similar statement of that. But you know, I want to give a little bit of history lesson here, folks, and see if this doesn't hit home with some of you, and just see if it doesn't make sense, okay? Now, hell, the spelling of H-E-L-L, is a pagan Latin word that was introduced by ancient Scandinavia when they kept invading what we now know as present-day Italy. Okay? Now, this invasion continued as an off-again, on-again campaign for over 300 years. And it started right around 9 BC. Now, here's a rhetorical question. Is it unheard of that invaders of one country to another, that the invaders just might bring their own peculiar beliefs and culture to the countries that they invade? Is even a possibility? And here's a second rhetorical question, along with possibilities. Is it even the slightest possibility that the Scandinavian people actually influenced the Latins, the Latin culture, within those 300 plus years? I mean, that's not reaching, is it? Well, consider this, speaking of that invasion. Hell, spelled H-E-L with a single L, was the name of a Scandinavian pagan goddess of the underworld netherworld. You know, both Hell, H-E-L, and Hell, H-E-L-L, are pronounced the exact same way, folks. And they're almost spelled the same. No kidding, right? Just one L difference. And they both words represent an underworld netherworld from a pagan culture. Interesting, huh? Coincidence? I don't think so. Now, you know, let's hit this from a little bit different angle here. You know, a little over 400 years later, from the first Scandinavian invasion of 9 BC, the Latin Church gathered together what they considered scriptural potential. And what I mean by that is they gathered scrolls and the Greek Septuagint and all the Greek manuscripts, and they got copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of letters that they found, and they published the Latin Vulgate. Now, this Vulgate is the forefront of what we consider modern day Bibles. Now, this sounds innocent enough, doesn't it? And it sounds as exciting as a movie of Raiders of the Lost Manuscripts, you know, but it was far from innocent, folks, because what they did is they took the liberty, and liberty is the correct word, or I could use a lot more profound word than that. They took the liberty to introduce a word representing an ancient Scandinavian pagan goddess. They adopted that very word to represent the Latin horrific pagan belief of an underworld netherworld, and then they inserted that very word, hell, 111 times where it was not found within the scrolls of the Greek Septuagint, the manuscripts, and the various copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of letters. And they put it in there. Now, I believe now let's just move on to a little bit further on, and the reason why we have it in our modern day Bibles is because I believe because of the culturally popular comedy play, Dante's Inferno, which is circa 1371. You know, by the way, also a Latin play. It matters. The translators of the King James Bible, which was published 240 years after Dante's Inferno, the play. 240 years later, these people who published the King James Bible, they were either too damn lazy or too ignorant of language, or ignorant of Italian history and culture, or simply saw that hell was popular. You know, whatever the case, they too inserted the word representing an ancient Scandinavian pagan goddess. Whether they knew that or not, who knows, because due to ignorance, remember? But they inserted that word hell. They inserted 54 times, but only 54 times, I might add, because here's my third rhetorical question. What happened to all those other 57 pagan Scandinavian goddesses from the Vulgate? 111 minus 57 is 54. Okay? In conclusion to this video, folks, Christianity wants people that actually know how to use their brains that God gave them. Christianity wants people to believe that the Bible is inerrant, even though not one of them agree on how many hells should be in them. You know, folks, they all can't be inerrant if none of them agree with each other. Am I missing something here? Also, for people who want to use their brains, Christianity expects us to believe even if Jesus spoke Latin, which isn't likely. Most historians say that Jesus spoke Aramaic and Hebrew. And the reason they say this is because, not just because, but scripturally, Jesus said he only came for the house of Israel. And historically, the house of Israel only spoke, for the general population, only spoke, not only, but mostly spoke Aramaic and Hebrew. So it's not a far stretch that historians said that Jesus only spoke Aramaic and Hebrew. But anyway, back to the question. Even if Jesus spoke Latin, you would have to conclude that he would actually use a word representing a pagan goddess to promote a horrific netherworld, underworld that Jews never believed in. So the average Jew, the house of Israel, wouldn't know what he was talking about, and they wouldn't understand him. And yet Christianity wants us to believe that? And to conclude this video, Christianity wants us to believe that the word hell actually came from a Hebrew word, okay? Sheol. That's a direct translation from a Hebrew word, Sheol. These are the excuses I hear all the time and I read about all the time. You know, and it's a fact that you talk to any Jew, what does Sheol represent to you? Oh, the death and the grave. And that there is no Hebrew word that represents an underworld, netherworld. But Sheol simply means death or grave. But yet we're told to believe that hell is a translation from that? It doesn't add up and doesn't make sense. Okay, folks, history lesson over. Now, I want to challenge any of my viewers to fact check. Fact check any of this and prepare for your hell-believing eyes to be opened. And if you disagree with me on this video, that's okay. That really is. But have some, and if you're going to leave a thumbs down, which I'd expect you to do that, Yellow Jackets, I expect you to do that if you disagree. However, if you're going to leave a comment, be polite about it, but don't do the name calling and the cop-outs and all that crap that people do when they have no knowledge or ammunition to back up what they believe. But instead be intelligent and use that brain that God gave you and do some research and give me some a pro and a con, a real argument to what I'm trying to share here. Okay? And I'll listen to you. And I'll respond likewise, politely. But again, if you're not polite, I'm going to get rid of you and your comments. It's just, I don't want to waste my time with that kind of crap. Also, if you happen to agree with this video, leave me a thumbs up. And leave a comment that might add to it. Add some spice to the cooking here, okay? Consider subscribing, any of you who feel so, like that's what you feel you should do. Also, look me up on Facebook. We have a private group called the Why Guy Group. It's a very safe place for you there. Unless you're not polite, then it's not a safe place for you there. We also have a public group called, well, under my name, avatar name, John Anthony Jones, and that's public, and there's all sorts of things going on there. And I've been forced to block people who are just plain ignorant, meaning lack of knowledge, and the only thing they have in their ammunition is name calling. And I'm like, come on, really? Anyway, you get my point. Well, I hope that this made sense, this video made sense, and I'm just trying to encourage you that you can trust God. You can't trust what men have done throughout history. And I'm just trying to give kind of a history, a little background that proves that man is wrong and man have lied to us. And you can trust God with the outcome of all of humanity. You can trust God with that and not trust necessarily what you read in your Bible. This answers that, doesn't it? Well, it did for me when I did some research, because I used to promote and believe hell as well, folks. So I get where you're coming from. Thank you for viewing.